Recently, I had a totally insane run while I was farming materials on the aspect of Persephone. This one was a blast because I got a heroic Aphrodite boon that let me remain super mobile by dashing around, smacking frozen enemies in the face, and what could they do about it? Die. That's exactly all they could do about it. Now this happened to be an Olympus run rather than the underworld, so it's a little bit shorter, and I didn't have that much time to get my build together. But I have to say, I kinda wish the other two areas were in here, so that way I could do the full thing, cause oh man, this one was a blast. And hey, if you want to see what a full Olympus run looks like, get subscribed, leave a like while you're down there, and stay tuned. When it's added to the game, I'm definitely going to be doing it. And because you only have 2 zones to prepare for Eris, you have to be a little picky about what you take. And in this case, I got the God rolls. First up, plus 45 power on my special. This massively boosts, I believe, nearly triples the base damage. This way, I can actually use my special as a damaging skill instead of having to rely on my Omega special. And additionally, I then got a heroic Aphrodite boon for 250% damage. If you were wondering what it looks like when you get a massive boost to your power and then 250% damage on top, oh boy, the numbers start flying. And so from there, my playstyle was special spam, and I was 1 or 2 shotting most of the enemies in the city of Ephyra. This made clearing the city super smooth and super easy. But it didn't stop there, because then I wanted a Demeter boon. Because what goes with enemies getting chunked for hundreds of damage by your special better? Than when they can't fight back because they're frozen. And that's exactly what I got. I was looking for either an attack or a cast, and I ended up hitting the cast. It was even epic, so that's what I decided to settle with. I guess settle's a really strange thing to say here because I was pretty darn happy about it. And at this point, I already knew the run was going to be really, really good. So from here, it was just about, well, not messing it up because I didn't have that much health. And honestly, opportunities to get health are pretty darn limited throughout these runs. So it was entirely possible that I was going to run into some trouble, especially if I was, well, let's just say a little too aggressive and overly eager to smack things in the face. But after fighting Polyphemus, I guess I shouldn't have been so worried, because this has to be the easiest Polyphemus I've ever done. The damage here completely melted through his HP bar like it was absolutely nothing. I took a bit of damage myself, but that was mostly because I wasn't holding down my special for long enough to get the Omega. Remember, your regular special does not have iframes. Your Omega special does have iframes, and Persephone extends the duration of your Omega special when you have Glory. So instead of running around invulnerably smacking the boss, a couple times I did it vulnerably, and that's where I took some of the damage. Even so, he didn't have enough health for it to matter. I cleaned up the ads passively, and seeing that many 300s on a spammable skill truly was hilarious. He never stood a chance, and I even had time slow to give myself even more setup time against him, or just quickly, smack some ads around until they absolutely melted. This is easily the most confident that I've been going into the Rifts of Thessaly. Oh, and by the way, the ships have a really narrow area. A small area that clusters all the enemies right in range of your Omega special. Which is exactly what I did. I was continually damaging foes, I was using my cast to make sure they were frozen. Unfortunately, the mariners with the giant anchors and the harpies were a little bit harder to kill, and sometimes I didn't always kill them if they were armored before the CC wore off. So sometimes I had a little help from the environment or used my Omega attack for some extra damage. That said, I did have the Omega special as a fallback. I could always run away, kite stuff, and then charge through and conserve my health for the Eris fight. And then I got to the Eris fight, which is where I started to lose some health, or at the very least a couple of my death defies. This is because I was playing super, super greedily. There were so many times where the smart thing to do would be just run away from a boss. I tried to run away from a boss for a bit, then run back in, dodge through her projectiles, and get in more damage on her, which sometimes worked. I was able to get in, and I was able to get more damage on her. But sometimes ended up in me taking a bunch of projectiles to the face. Luckily, this didn't matter. I know the fight pretty well. I'm pretty sure that I could take it down without using any death defies if I was actually playing smart. And I also knew that I had enough damage to just burn her down. So, with the safety of the extra death defies, that's what I was going to do. In fact, right off the start, I'd pretty much immediately phased her and just kept on blasting. Of course, she went invulnerable, she had to buff herself. Gotta let her do that. After all, it needs to be a fair fight, and I've got plenty of buffs on me right now. But after that, it was back to blasting. And I knew that any time I was a little unsure of what she was doing next, the best thing to do was charge up an Omega special. Whereas if I absolutely knew what she was going to do next, it's technically higher damage for me to just smack her with a regular special because that has such a fast execution time. Really, it's kind of insane how fast the execution time on this is when it's hitting for 300s, which I would have expected from, say, a melee attack on Zorfet that's much slower to execute. And then while watching her HP bar, I ate another barrage. Luckily, during this exchange, she definitely lost more HP than me. And at one point, I got her up against a wall, and goddamn, that damage absolutely destroyed her. I'm pretty sure that I could take out an entire phase just by getting her up against the wall and using an extended charge. Unfortunately, it's really, really hard to do that, both in terms of getting the extended charge, charged up by doing damage, making sure that Eris stands near a wall when she really doesn't want to, and also controlling the charge enough to get all that damage into her. And at that point, it was basically one more immunity phase until the boss was over. I could easily afford to do more dumb stuff like charge through a fire to get in those last few hits. Having something like a Hephaestus boon on my attack would have actually helped out to get a little more burst damage here. It absolutely wasn't necessary though, and oh my god, it was so fun to just go into the boss fight, go, I don't care about your mechanics, boss, I'm going to destroy you, and do exactly that. And so that was my really fun run on Aspect of Persephone. I'm pretty sure this build would also work really well against Kronos, especially if you're able to get just enough speed to charge up that special before he can hit you. And, well, you're going to be invulnerable. Plus, you can always dash back and forth in between his attacks because they are pretty slow and spaced out. Now, the reason I haven't done too many Olympus runs in my build showcases is most of the time, it doesn't feel like my build gets to properly develop. But this time, it felt fully developed pretty much from the third boon I obtained, so it was absolutely worth it because I had a ton of fun playing this. And if you're looking for something else to watch, maybe a different build for a different weapon, well, I'll link to a few that I've done recently down below, including Aspect of Charon, Aspect of Momus, and Aspect of Pan. But now I'm curious, what's the craziest Olympus run you've had? What weapon was it? What build was it? Let me know down below. And of course, before I go, special thanks to my patrons and channel members for the continued support. You cannot make videos like this possible, and you might even see your name on screen like these fine folks here. And also, a big thanks to everyone who watched to the end. I'm glad you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.